Marcus Reed stood in front of the mirror in his cramped quarters aboard the coalition vessel Meridian Dawn, adjusting his uniform for the third time. 6 weeks into his assignment as cultural liaison, and he still felt like an imposter among the dozens of alien species that called this ship home. His reflection showed a man in his late 20s with sandy brown hair, green eyes, and an expression that betrayed his nervousness. "You've got this," he muttered to himself, checking the small translation device clipped to his collar. The thing had been acting up lately, occasionally producing garbled output that left him gesturing wildly to explain what he'd actually meant to say. The mess hall was his. Destination a sprawling space, where crew members from across the galaxy gathered to share meals and, theoretically, build camaraderie. Marcus had been making a genuine effort to connect with his alien colleagues, knowing that his performance would influence whether more humans would be welcomed into deep space positions. As he navigated the corridor, his mind wandered to the stack of cultural briefings he'd been studying. Thalasian greeting customs, Varanthi dietary restrictions, Krell social hierarchies. It was overwhelming. He rounded a corner and nearly collided with someone moving in the opposite direction. "Oh, sorry, Marcus began, stepping back quickly. Before him stood a Thalasian woman, and for a moment he simply stared. He'd seen Thalasians before, of course, but never up close like this. Her skin was a rich violet that seemed to shift in the corridor's lighting, and from her scalp cascaded dozens of thin, elegant tendrils that moved with an almost hypnotic fluidity. They were bioluminescent, glowing softly with an inner light that pulsed in gentle patterns. Her eyes were large and expressive, a deep amber color that studied him with equal curiosity. "No harm done," she said, her voice carrying that melodic quality unique to her species. "You're the new human liaison, yes?" "Marcus Reed?" "That's me," he confirmed, grateful she knew who he was. "And you are?" "Savara. I work in environmental systems, keep the ship's atmosphere breathable for everyone." She smiled, a gesture that humans and Thalasians apparently shared. "I've seen you around but haven't had a chance to introduce myself." They stood there for a moment, the awkward silence of two people who wanted to be friendly but weren't sure how to proceed. Marcus's eyes kept drifting to her tendrils, which were arranged in an intricate pattern he found genuinely beautiful. They caught the light differently than yesterday. Had she done something different? Wanting to be polite and show cultural awareness, Marcus cleared his throat. "I hope this isn't inappropriate, but I wanted to say your tendrils look really great today. Did you do something different with them?" The effect was immediate and dramatic. Savara's entire body went rigid. Her amber eyes widened to an almost comical degree, and her tendrils suddenly blazed with bright light before flushing to a deep, dark purple. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. "What did you just say?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Marcus felt his stomach drop. That was clearly not the reaction he'd been hoping for. I meant your tendrils look nice? Different in a good way?" Several passing crew members had stopped to watch, including a tall Voranthi engineer who was making no attempt to hide his amusement. A pair of Thalasian women further down the corridor had their hands over their mouths, their own tendrils writhing with what Marcus could only interpret as shock. "Marcus," Savara said, her voice now oddly controlled, "I think we should speak privately. Now." Without waiting for his response, she turned and walked quickly toward a nearby conference room. Marcus followed, his face burning with embarrassment, acutely aware of every eye tracking their progress. The door slid shut behind them, sealing them in this small, sterile space. "Look," Marcus began immediately, "I clearly said something wrong, and I'm so sorry. My translator has been glitching, and I was just trying to be friendly. What exactly did you think you were saying?" Savara interrupted, turning to face him. Her tendrils were still that dark purple, pulsing slowly. "That your tendrils looked nice today?" Marcus ran his hand through his own hair anxiously. "Was that offensive?" "I didn't mean it wasn't offensive," Savara cut him off again. "But do you understand what you actually said to me?" Marcus frowned, his mind racing back through his words. "Apparently not." Savara took a deep breath, her tendrils rippling in waves. "In Thalasian culture, commenting on someone's tendrils in the way you did, the phrase your translator produced, it doesn't mean what you think. The closest human equivalent would be—" She paused, seeming to search for words. "You essentially declared that I appear ready for the bonding ritual, and that you find me suitable as a life partner." The blood drained from Marcus's face and rushed back with a vengeance. "Oh my God. Oh no. Savara, I am so sorry. I had absolutely no idea. I was just trying to be nice, to show I was paying attention to cultural details. And instead He couldn't even finish the sentence. "Furthermore," Savara continued, though Marcus noticed a slight tremor in her voice that might have been suppressed laughter, "such a declaration is only made by someone who is seriously pursuing a romantic relationship. It's not something said casually." Marcus wanted to disappear, to dematerialize and scatter his atoms across space. "This is the worst thing I've ever done," he groaned, covering his face with his hands. "Please tell me there's a Thalasian custom for—" My translator made me sound like an idiot, and I'm actually not proposing. To his surprise, a sound like wind chimes filled the room. Marcus looked up to see Savara laughing, her tendrils now shifting to a lighter purple mixed with streaks of blue. "Your expression," she managed between laughs. "I've never seen a human turn quite that shade of red." Despite his mortification, Marcus found himself chuckling weakly. "Well, I'm glad one of us finds this funny." "It is funny," Savara said, her laughter subsiding into a warm smile. "Cultural misunderstandings happen, Marcus. You're not the first person to have a translator malfunction, though I admit this is one of the more memorable ones. How do I fix this?" Marcus asked seriously. "I don't want people thinking I'm going around proposing to random crew members." Savara's tendrils rippled in a pattern Marcus was starting to recognize as thoughtfulness. "Well, that might be complicated. You see, several Thalasians witnessed our exchange. By now, the entire Thalasian crew probably knows. And in our culture, once such words are spoken publicly—" She trailed off. "Once they're spoken publicly, what? It's assumed there's genuine interest from both parties, unless explicitly denied. If I were to publicly state you didn't mean it, it would be—" She hesitated. "Humiliating. For me. It would suggest I'm so undesirable that even accidental proposals need immediate retraction." Marcus's eyes widened. "But that's not what I'm saying at all." "I know," Savara said gently. "But that's how it would be perceived." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation settling over them. Finally, Marcus spoke. "So what do we do?" Savara's tendrils shifted through several colors, purple, blue, and finally settling on a soft violet that Marcus didn't recognize. "We could not clarify things immediately. Let people think what they're thinking. It would save us both from awkwardness. You'd be okay with people thinking we single quotes Marcus gestured vaguely between them. "Courting? It's not ideal, but it's better than the alternative explanations." She paused. "Unless the idea is completely abhorrent to you?" No, it's not that. I just don't want to make your life more difficult than I already have." A small smile played at Savara's lips. "You know, for someone who just accidentally proposed, you're being very considerate about my feelings." Marcus couldn't help but laugh. "I try." As they exited the conference room, Marcus was hyper-aware of the eyes tracking them. Savara walked beside him with her head high, her tendrils arranged in what he hoped was a confident pattern. They made their way to the mess hall together, and Marcus noticed the way other Thalassians watched them, some with curiosity, others with what might have been approval. "This is going to be all over the ship by tomorrow, isn't it?" Marcus muttered. "It's already all over the ship," Savara replied calmly. "Thalassian communication networks are very efficient." They collected their meals a human-style protein bowl for Marcus, something that looked like crystallized fruit for Savara, and found a table near, the large viewport showing the stars streaking past. As they sat down, Marcus realized this was the most comfortable he'd felt since boarding the Meridian Dawn. "So," Savara said, her tendrils glowing softly in the dim light, "if we're going to be pretend courting, you should probably know more about actual Thalassian customs, to avoid any more accidental proposals." "I would really appreciate that," Marcus said sincerely, "though I have to replace this translator first." "Probably wise." She took a delicate bite of her meal and looked at him with those expressive amber eyes. "For what it's worth, Marcus, even though this started as a misunderstanding, you seem like a decent person. This might not be the worst thing that's happened to either of us." Marcus felt warmth spread through his chest that had nothing to do with his meal. "Yeah," he agreed quietly. "Maybe not the worst thing." What neither of them mentioned, what neither wanted to acknowledge yet, was the curious flutter of genuine interest that had sparked in that conference room. Sometimes, Marcus thought, the best relationships started with the worst first impressions. The morning after his spectacular linguistic disaster, Marcus discovered that news traveled faster than light speed on the Meridian Dawn. He couldn't walk 10 meters without encountering knowing glances, whispered conversations that stopped abruptly when he passed, and most unnervingly approving nods from Thalassian crew members he'd never even spoken to. "Quite the romantic, aren't you, Reed?" called out Lieutenant Joran, a Varanthi security officer with scales that shimmered bronze. His lipless mouth curved in what Marcus had learned was a grin. "Swept one of our Thalassian friends right off her feet." Marcus forced a smile, wishing he could explain that he'd done nothing of the sort that his malfunctioning translator had swept Savara off her feet, while his actual self had simply stood there like an idiot. Instead, he mumbled something non-committal and hurried toward the observation deck where Savara had suggested they meet. She was already there, standing by the massive viewport with her back to him. The stars provided a breathtaking backdrop, but Marcus found his attention drawn to the way her tendrils caught the light, creating patterns of bioluminescence that pulsed gently. Today they were arranged in a loose, flowing style that cascaded down her back, quite different from yesterday's more intricate configuration. "You came," she said without turning around, somehow sensing his presence. "Of course I came. I owe you at least an explanation to anyone who asks about you." "S." He moved to stand beside her, maintaining what he hoped was an appropriate distance. Savara finally looked at him, and Marcus noticed her tendrils were a soft blue this morning. "I've been thinking about our situation. We have a few options. I'm all ears. We could tell the truth that it was a translator error, but as I mentioned, that would be socially awkward for both of us. Thalassians would see me as rejected, and you'd be known as the human who accidentally proposes and immediately takes it back. Not great for either of our reputations." Marcus winced. "Option 2? We could lean into it. Act as though we're genuinely exploring compatibility. In Thalassian culture, the early stages of courtship typically last several weeks anyway. We spend time together, learn about each other, and then—" She paused. "Eventually, we could mutually agree we're not compatible and part ways amicably. No one loses face. Fake dating," Marcus said slowly. "We'd be fake dating. I suppose that's one way to phrase it." A hint of amusement colored her voice. "Though I prefer cultural diplomacy through strategic social positioning." Despite the absurdity of the situation, Marcus laughed. That's definitely going in my report. So we just... What? Spend time together? Get coffee? Talk? Essentially. And I could teach you about Thilasian customs, properly this time, so you don't accidentally propose to anyone else. I like that plan, Marcus admitted. Though I have to ask, won't this be weird for you? Having to pretend to be interested in some human you barely know? Savara's tendrils rippled in a pattern Marcus didn't recognize. Perhaps less weird than you think. You seem genuine, Marcus. A bit clumsy with your translations, but genuine. And honestly, ... She hesitated. I've been curious about humans since you came aboard. This gives me an excuse to satisfy that curiosity. Something warm unfurled in Marcus's chest. Well, when you put it that way, I'm curious about you too. Your people, I mean, the Thilasians. Then we have an arrangement. She extended her hand in the human custom, and Marcus shook it, noting how her violet skin felt cool and smooth against his. Shall we begin your cultural education? Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus and Savara fell into an easy routine. They met for meals, during which she explained the intricate meanings behind tendril colors and patterns. They walked the ship's corridors together, and she taught him proper Thilasian greetings, the subtle tilt of the head, the specific way tendrils were meant to be arranged during formal introductions. So blue means calm or content? Marcus asked one evening as they shared dinner in a quiet corner of the mess hall. Generally, yes, though it can also indicate focus or concentration, depending on the pattern. Savara's own tendrils demonstrated, shifting from a uniform blue to one with intricate swirls. See the difference? I think so. And purple? Her tendrils flickered briefly to purple before returning to blue. Purple is ... complicated. It can mean several things, like embarrassment, surprise, or ... She looked away, suddenly focused on her meal. Other emotional states. Marcus wanted to press further, but something in her tone suggested this wasn't the time. Instead, he steered the conversation toward human customs, explaining everything from handshakes to the bizarre tradition of birthday celebrations. So you celebrate the anniversary of your birth by setting food on fire? Savara asked, her tendrils bright with what Marcus now recognized as amusement. Well, when you put it like that, it does sound weird. But birthday candles are a tradition. You make a wish before you blow them out. And does the wish come true? Only if you don't tell anyone what it is, Marcus said with mock seriousness. Humans have very strange magic, Savara replied. But she was smiling ... as the days passed. Marcus found himself looking forward to their time together more than he wanted to admit. Savara was brilliant, with a sharp wit that caught him off guard. She had a way of tilting her head when she found something confusing, and her tendrils would coil slightly at the tips when she was thinking hard about something. He started noticing these small details, cataloging them without meaning to. One evening, they found themselves in the ship's arboretum, a small green space maintained for crew mental health. Bioluminescent plants from a dozen worlds created a soft, ethereal glow. They sat on a bench beneath something that resembled a willow tree, its branches drooping with crystalline leaves. Can I ask you something personal? Marcus ventured. You can ask. I'll decide whether to answer. Why did you agree to this? The fake courtship, I mean. You could have just explained the truth to everyone. Savara was quiet for a long moment, her tendrils pulsing slowly through shades of blue and violet. Because, she finally said, I've been on this ship for 3 years. I've watched other crew members form relationships, start families, and I've always been too focused on my work to pursue anything myself. And then you came along with your terrible translator and your genuine apology, and I thought ... double quote. She trailed off. You thought what? I thought maybe this was the universe giving me an excuse to take a chance on something. Even if it's not real. Marcus's heart hammered in his chest. Who says it has to stay fake? The words hung in the air between them. Savara turned to look at him fully, her amber eyes searching his face. Marcus, I'm just saying, these past 2 weeks have been the best part of my time on this ship. You're funny and smart, and you haven't made me feel like an idiot even once, despite the fact that I definitely gave you ammunition to do so. He took a breath. I like spending time with you, Savara. Actually like it, not pretend like it. Her tendrils blazed violet for a moment before she seemed to get them under control. This is complicated, I know. We're from different species, different worlds. I know that too. And we only started this because of a misunderstanding. True, Marcus admitted. But some of the best things start by accident. Penicillin, chocolate chip cookies, post-it notes. Despite herself, Savara laughed. Did you just compare our potential relationship to office supplies? I'm making a point about happy accidents. She shook her head, but her tendrils were bright with color blue and violet, and even streaks of gold that Marcus had never seen before. You're ridiculous. Is that a Thalasian compliment? It's a statement of fact. But she moved closer to him on the bench, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. Marcus, if we do this, if we try to make this real, there are things you need to understand about Thalasian relationships. We don't take them lightly. I'm listening. Our tendrils aren't just for show. They're neurologically sensitive. When two Thalasians are genuinely interested in each other, there are rituals, ways of touching that create bonds. Once those bonds form, they're not easy to break. Marcus felt the weight of her words. Are you saying it would be like permanent? Not permanent, but significant. And there's something else. She took a breath. My family would want to meet you. Thalasian families are very involved in relationship decisions. Meet the family, Marcus repeated. That's pretty universal, actually. Humans do that too. My sister Niraya is very protective. And my father, Keldon ... Savara's tendrils coiled anxiously. He'll test you. It's traditional. He'll want to make sure you're worthy. Worthy of you? Marcus felt a flutter of nervousness. What kind of test? Cultural knowledge, mostly. Problem solving. He once made Niraya's partner recite the entire genealogy of our family line, going back 6 generations. Marcus paled slightly. I can barely remember my own family tree going back 2 generations. I could help you study, Savara offered, a smile playing at her lips. If you're serious about this. I am. Marcus surprised himself with how much he meant it. Savara, I know this started as a mistake, but I'd like to see where it goes. Really goes. She reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away, and placed her hand over his. Her skin was cool, but the gesture made Marcus feel warm all over. Then we have a lot to discuss. Because as of yesterday, my father sent a message. He's invited both of us to our family's habitat on station, Theta 7. We're scheduled to dock there in 4 days for resupply. Marcus's eyes widened. 4 days? That's not much time to prepare. No, Savara agreed, her tendrils now pulsing with what Marcus recognized as nervousness. It's not. But Marcus, there's something I need you to understand before we do this. What's that? When we arrive, my family will be evaluating us as a potential bonded pair. If you meet my father and he approves, if you participate in our customs and show genuine respect for our culture, they'll expect us to proceed toward formal bonding. Formal bonding. That's like marriage? Similar, yes. It's a serious commitment. Her amber eyes held his. So I need you to be absolutely certain this is what you want. Because once we step off this ship at Theta 7 as a couple, there's no going back to just being friends. We either move forward together, or we end this now. Marcus's mind raced. 4 days ago, he'd been a lonely human trying not to embarrass himself. Now he was contemplating something that looked a lot like a future with someone from another world. It should have terrified him. Instead, it felt right. "I want to meet your family," he said firmly. "I want to try." Savara's tendrils blazed with multiple colors, violet and gold and blue, all swirling together. "Then we should start your lessons immediately. My father doesn't appreciate unprepared visitors." "What's the first lesson?" She stood, offering him her hand. "Understanding tendril communication. It's essential for Thalasian relationships. Come, I'll show you in my quarters where we can have privacy." As they walked together through the ship's corridors, Marcus noticed crew members watching them with new expressions, no longer amusement, but something closer to respect. The human and the Thalasian, making an unlikely pairing work. In Savara's quarters, she dimmed the lights so her tendrils glowed more brightly. In Thalasian culture, tendrils express what words sometimes cannot. Watch carefully. She demonstrated different patterns: joy, sadness, desire, fear, each one creating a unique display of color and movement. Marcus watched, fascinated, trying to memorize every detail. "Now," she said softly, "there's one more thing. May I touch your hair?" "My hair?" "You have a biological equivalent to our tendrils, in a way. I'd like to understand it better." Marcus nodded, and Savara stepped closer. Her fingers were gentle as they ran through his sandy brown hair, exploring the texture. He caught his breath at the intimacy of it, the way her face was inches from his, her concentration absolute. "Fascinating," she murmured. "So different from neural tendrils, but I can see why humans touch each other's hair. There's something comforting about it." "Savara," Marcus said quietly, and she met his eyes. "Thank you for giving this a chance. Thank you for being brave enough to accidentally propose," she replied with that musical laugh he was growing to love. "Though next time you want to compliment someone, perhaps check your translator first." "Next time?" "I'm pretty sure you're the only person I'll be complimenting from now on." Her tendrils flushed violet, and this time Marcus understood what it meant: attraction, interest, the beginning of something deeper. And as they stood there in her quarters, the stars streaming past outside, Marcus realized that sometimes the best love stories started with the worst opening lines. 4 days, he thought. 4 days to prepare to meet her family and prove he was worthy of this incredible woman who'd turned his disaster into an opportunity. 4 days to transform their pretend relationship into something undeniably real. "So," he said, breaking the comfortable silence, "what's lesson 2? Savara smiled, her whole face lighting up. "Lesson 2 is understanding why you should never, ever compliment a Thalasian's cooking unless you're prepared to eat 3 servings. Marcus laughed, settling in for a long evening of cultural education. And as Savara continued teaching him about her world, he found himself falling, really falling, for the alien woman who'd been patient enough to turn his mistake into something beautiful. The translation might have been wrong, but somehow they were finding a way to understand each other perfectly.